The massive alien ships appeared in Earth's sky like dark clouds that blocked out the sun. Admiral Keithvar stood on the bridge of his war vessel, looking down at the small blue planet below. He had done this same thing 1,000 times before, on 1,000 different worlds. It was always the same story. Show up with overwhelming force, give the locals a choice, and watch them surrender. Dr. Hyun-woo Park sat in his underground laboratory deep beneath Seoul, staring at the computer, screens that showed him everything he needed to know. The readings were clear. The Zephyrian Empire had finally found Earth. He had been preparing for this day for 20 years, ever since Earth's deep space telescopes first detected the Empire's expansion pattern moving through their galaxy. "It's time," he whispered into his communication device. Across the planet, in hidden bunkers and secret facilities, other humans received the same message and began activating systems that had been waiting in silence for decades. Admiral Keithvar adjusted his uniform and stepped forward to the communication console. The message he was about to send was one he had delivered so many times he could recite it in his sleep. Every species received the same ultimatum, and every species made the same choice in the end. Primitive humans of the third planet. His voice boomed across every radio, television, and communication device on Earth. "I am Admiral Keithvar of the Zephyrian Empire. Your world now falls under our domain. You have 72 hours to submit to Imperial rule and accept your place as subjects of the Empire. If you refuse, your planet will be destroyed as an example to others who might consider resistance." The message ended, and Keithvar leaned back in his command chair. Now came the waiting. First would come panic, then desperate attempts at negotiation, then the inevitable surrender. It was a dance he had performed across 12 galaxies. In the emergency session hall of the United Nations, President Jin-A Kim stood before representatives from every nation on Earth. The alien message had been received and translated within minutes. The room was silent except for the quiet hum of air conditioning and the distant sound of people breathing. "The message is clear," President Kim said, her voice steady and calm. "We have been given a choice. Submit or die. But we always knew this day might come." Dr. Park's face appeared on the main screen of the assembly hall. Behind his glasses, his eyes were tired but determined. "Protocol 7 is now active," he announced. "All systems are online and ready for implementation. We have 40 years of preparation behind us. The question is simple. Do we proceed, President?" Kim looked around the room at the faces of world leaders who had been briefed on Protocol 7 years earlier, but had hoped they would never need to use it. The vote was unanimous. "We proceed," she said. The response Earth sent back to Admiral Keithvar was polite and formal. President Kim appeared on the communication screen, dressed in a simple blue suit, her hands folded calmly in front of her. "Admiral Keithvar," she began, "we have received your message and considered your offer carefully. We must respectfully decline. However, we would like to request a small extension to your deadline. 96 hours would allow us to properly prepare our affairs." Admiral Keithvar's mandibles clicked together in what his species considered laughter. The human female spoke as if she were declining an invitation to dinner rather than facing the destruction of her entire world. The audacity was almost amusing. "Very well," he replied. "You have 96 hours to come to your senses. Use this time wisely." As the communication ended, Keithvar turned to his second-in-command. "Have you ever seen such denial, Commander? They speak as if they have options. But down on Earth, denial was the furthest thing from human minds. In facilities hidden deep underground, in bases carved into the sides of mountains, and in installations floating in the dark spaces between planets, humanity began the most ambitious project in their history. Dr. So-Young Choi stood in the primary, control center, watching as status reports came in from around the globe. Green lights appeared on her board one by one as each facility reported ready status. "Population centers beginning evacuation to safe zones," she announced to Dr. Park. "Transport systems are operating at maximum capacity. We should have everyone moved within 72 hours. The evacuation was unlike anything the world had ever seen, yet it was completely invisible to the alien ships watching from above. Families gathered their essential belongings and walked calmly to designated meeting points. They boarded vehicles that took them to facilities they had never seen before, passing through doorways that led to places that shouldn't exist. Children asked their parents where they were going, and the parents smiled and said they were taking a trip to somewhere safe. It wasn't a lie. It just wasn't the complete truth. Admiral Kethvar watched his sensors as energy readings from Earth began to increase. His science officers reported elevated industrial activity, probably the humans attempting to build weapons or defensive systems. It was pathetic, really. What could a species that had barely managed to reach their own moon hope to accomplish against the might of the Empire? As the deadline approached, Kethvar prepared his weapons. Earth would become another example of what happened to those who dared defy the Empire. He had no idea that humanity's answer to overwhelming force wasn't resistance. It was something far more dangerous to an empire built on fear and conquest. The countdown timer on Admiral Kethvar's command screen showed less than 2 hours remaining. His weapon systems were fully charged and ready to turn the blue planet below into nothing more than floating debris. He had grown tired of waiting for the humans to come to their senses. They had used their extra time poorly, showing no signs of preparing for surrender. Commander Daehyun Lee floated in the observation deck of the hidden moon base, watching the alien fleet through the transparent aluminum windows. His base had been built inside a crater on the dark side of Earth's moon, invisible to the invaders above. Through his headset, he could hear the final status reports coming in from around the solar system. Luna base to control. He spoke quietly into his microphone. Enemy fleet maintaining attack formation. No change in their position. Dr. So-Young Choi sat in the main control room deep beneath the surface of what used to be the Rocky Mountains. Banks of computers surrounded her, their screens showing data streams from thousands of sensors placed around the planet. Every human settlement, every major city, every remote village was now connected to the network. Final headcount complete, she announced to the room. 4.2 billion humans successfully relocated to staging areas. All civilian populations are now in safe zones. The staging areas were not traditional evacuation centers. They were chambers built around massive machines that hummed with power, drawn from the planet's core itself. Each chamber could hold thousands of people in perfect safety, while the machines did their work. Admiral Kethvar checked his chronometer. 30 minutes remained. He had hoped the humans would show some dignity in their final moments. Perhaps attempt to contact him with a desperate plea for mercy. Instead, his communication channels remained silent. The primitives were going to force him to simply destroy them without ceremony. "Sir," his sensor operator called out, "we're detecting unusual energy patterns from the planet's surface." Kethvar moved to the sensor station and examined the readings. Power signatures were spiking across the entire planet, concentrated around the major population centers. "They're probably trying to power some kind of defensive shield," he said, dismissively. "Or perhaps they think they can hide underground." He had seen desperate species try both approaches before. Neither had ever worked. Captain Sung-Min Yu stood in the final transport chamber, the last human remaining on Earth's surface. Through the chamber's viewing window, he could see the familiar landscape of the Korean countryside where he had grown up. In a few minutes, he would never see this view again. "Control, this is Captain Yu reporting. Final transport ready for departure. All other humans are confirmed safe in the new location." Dr. Choi's voice came through his headset. "Confirmed, Captain. You are cleared for final transition. Thank you for your service." Captain Yu smiled as he looked out at the hills and forests one last time. "It's been an honor to be the last person to see home," he said. Admiral Kethvar watched his countdown timer reach 0. "All weapons target the largest population centers, fire at will." His gunners pressed their triggers, sending streams of energy powerful enough to crack continents toward the planet below. But as the deadly light crossed the space between the fleet and Earth, something impossible began to happen. The planet started to fade. It wasn't an explosion or a destruction. Earth simply became transparent, like looking through colored glass. The blue oceans became pale, the brown continents turned ghostly, and the white clouds became wisps of nothing. "Sir?" The The sensor operator's voice cracked with confusion. The planet, it's disappearing. Admiral Kethvar rushed to the main viewing screen. Where Earth had hung in space just moments ago, there was now empty blackness. Not debris floating where a planet had been destroyed, not the glowing remains of a world torn apart by weapons. Just empty space as if Earth had never existed at all. "Run full sensor sweeps," he ordered, his voice tight with disbelief. "Find that planet." The sensors found nothing. No gravitational signature where Earth should be. No energy readings. No trace of the 4 billion humans who had lived there. The moon still orbited exactly where it should, following the same path. It always had, but it was now orbiting empty space. Captain Yu opened his eyes in the arrival chamber and looked through the viewing portal. Instead of the Korean countryside, he saw something that took his breath away. Earth hung in space before him, exactly as it had always been, but the stars around it were different. Strange constellations filled the sky, and 2 small suns provided gentle light. "Welcome to Dimension Echo 7, Dr. Park's voice announced over the speaker system. "Population transfer complete. Earth has successfully relocated to our new home." Through another viewing portal, Captain Yu could see the Zephyrian fleet floating in the space where Earth used to be. The alien ships looked tiny and lost, their sensors sweeping back and forth like confused insects trying to find food that had vanished. Dr. Choi appeared beside him, her face showing exhaustion and relief. 40 years of preparation," she said quietly. 40 years of building machines that could move an entire planet sideways through reality itself. Admiral Kethvar stared at the empty space on his viewing screen. In 12,000 years of conquest across thousands of worlds and millions of battles, he had never encountered anything like this. Planets could be destroyed, populations could be enslaved, but worlds did not simply cease to exist. "Find them," he whispered, then louder. "Find them. I don't care what it takes. Scan every dimension, every reality, every possible space they could have gone. Find those humans." But Earth was already far beyond his reach, existing in a place the Empire had never imagined possible. The humans had not fought the Zephyrian fleet. They had simply stepped outside of reality and closed the door behind them. Admiral Kethvar had not slept in 3 days. He stood in his command center, staring at star charts and dimensional readings that made no sense. The empty space where Earth had been mocked him from the viewing screen. His officers moved quietly, around him, afraid to speak unless spoken to. The message he had to send to Emperor Zeth Mor was the most humiliating communication of his military career. "How do you tell the ruler of 12 galaxies that you have lost an entire planet? Not destroyed it in battle, not failed to conquer it, but simply misplaced it like a piece of equipment. My Emperor," he began the recorded message. "The human planet had disappeared. Not destroyed, not relocated through known means. It has simply vanished from our reality. I request immediate assistance from the Imperial Science Division." Dr. Yan Su-Han watched the Zephyrian fleet through the quantum viewing portal from her laboratory in the pocket dimension. The alien ships had been searching the same empty space for days, running every type of scan their technology could produce. She allowed herself a small smile as she watched them probe uselessly at nothing. "They're getting desperate," she reported to Dr. Park. 3 more science vessels arrived this morning. They're trying dimensional scanners now." Dr. Park nodded as he reviewed the data from their monitoring stations. "Let them look. They're searching for us in the wrong reality entirely. Even if they understood our technology, they would need coordinates we're never going to give them." But the Empire's frustration was about to become much worse. Commander Ji-Hoon Kwan sat in the pilot seat of his ship as it prepared to exit quantum fold space. His vessel was unlike anything Earth had possessed when the aliens first arrived. Built in the pocket dimension using technology that combined human engineering with principles learned from studying dimensional physics, it moved through space in ways the Empire had never seen. "Strike Team Alpha ready for emergence," he reported to Mission Control on Earth. "Target is the supply convoy in the Vega system." The Zephyrian supply ships were carrying food and equipment to colonies in the outer territories. It was routine cargo, protected by only 3 escort vessels. The convoy commander, Sub-Admiral Thysic, was reading reports about the missing human planet when his sensors detected something impossible. 5 ships materialized out of empty space directly in front of his convoy. They were sleek and angular, unlike any human design in the Imperial database. Before he could react, beams of energy struck his escort ships, but instead of destroying them, the weapons simply shut down their engines and weapon systems. "This is Commander Quan of the Human Liberation Fleet," a voice came across all communication channels. "We are not here to harm you. Please prepare to abandon your vessels." Sub-Admiral Thysic tried to fire his weapons, but his systems were completely dead. Emergency power flickered on, providing just enough energy for life support and communications. "Human Liberation Fleet? You're supposed to be extinct." "We're very much alive," Commander Quan replied. "And we're here to offer your crews a choice." What happened next violated every rule of warfare the Empire understood. Instead of boarding the disabled ships to steal cargo or take prisoners, the humans sent small craft that rescued the Zephyrian crews from their powerless vessels. They were taken aboard the human ships, given food and medical attention, and then delivered safely to the nearest Imperial base. The supply ships were left floating empty in space, their cargo holds open to vacuum, their contents scattered among the stars. Sub-Admiral Thysic found himself sitting in a comfortable chair, aboard a human vessel, drinking what the humans called coffee and trying to understand what had just happened to him. "Why?" he asked Commander Quan. "Why rescue us? Why not take us prisoner or kill us?" Commander Quan sat across from him, his expression serious, but not unkind. "Because we're not your enemies, Sub-Admiral. We're fighting your system, not your people." The report Sub-Admiral Thysic filed when he reached the Imperial base was the first of many that would confuse and frustrate the Empire's military leadership. The humans were not behaving like any enemy they had ever faced. Admiral Kethvar read the reports with growing bewilderment. "They disabled our ships but rescued our crews? They destroyed valuable supplies but harmed no one. What kind of military strategy is this?" The attacks continued across the outer territories. Human ships appeared without warning, struck fast, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. But they never killed anyone. They never took prisoners. They never occupied territory or claimed resources for themselves. Captain Mi Young Jang led the attack on the mining station at Kepler 442b. Her team appeared simultaneously at 12 different points around the facility, emerging from quantum fold space like ghosts materializing from thin air. "Attention, all personnel," her voice echoed through the station's communication system. "This facility is being evacuated. Please gather your personal belongings and report to the main assembly areas." The Zephyrian station commander, Colonel Vextar, activated the emergency defense systems, but his weapons found no targets. The humans moved through the station like they knew exactly where everything was located, disabling security systems without damaging them, opening locked doors without breaking them. "What do you want?" Colonel Vextar demanded when Captain Jang found him in his command center. "We want to give your workers a choice," she replied simply. "Stay and serve the Empire, or leave and live free." Within 6 hours, the mining station was empty. Not destroyed, not damaged, just empty. The humans had taken every person who wanted to leave and vanished into space, leaving behind a fully functional facility with no one to operate it. Admiral Kethvar stared at the reports piling up on his desk. Dozens of facilities across the outer territories were going dark, their populations simply disappearing. But there were no signs of battle, no evidence of force being used. The Empire was facing an enemy that followed no rules they understood. 6 months had passed since Earth vanished, and Admiral Kethvar felt like he was fighting ghosts. His war room was covered with maps showing red marks where Zephyrian colonies had gone silent. Not destroyed, not conquered, just empty. The pattern made no sense to him. Colonel Mi Young Jang stood outside the residential district of mining colony, Sarian 7, watching through her binoculars as families went about their evening routines. Children played in the streets while their parents finished work shifts in the processing plants. In 3 hours, this peaceful scene would change forever. "Team leaders, report status," she whispered into her communication device. "Team Alpha, In position at the north entrance, came the first reply. Team Beta ready at the industrial sector, reported another voice. Team Gamma covering the residential areas, said a third. Colonel Zhang had led 43 liberation operations in the past 6 months. Each one followed the same careful plan that never involved violence, never resulted in death, and always offered the same simple choice to everyone they encountered. The quantum fold generators hummed quietly as her teams prepared to emerge from their hidden dimension into the colony. Dr. Park had spent years perfecting the technology that allowed humans to step sideways through reality, appearing anywhere in the galaxy without traveling through normal space. At exactly midnight colony time, the liberation began. Zephyrian families sitting in their homes watched in amazement as humans in simple uniforms appeared in their living rooms, emerging from doorways that led to places that should not exist. The humans carried no weapons and showed no aggression. Instead, they carried translation devices and gentle smiles. Please do not be afraid, Colonel Zhang said to the first family she encountered. We are here to offer you a choice. The Zephyrian father, a maintenance worker named Grixnal, stood protectively in front of his wife and 2 children. Who are you? How did you get into our home? We are humans, Colonel Zhang replied. We know your people have lived under Imperial rule for many generations. We want you to know that this is not the only way to live. She gestured toward the doorway she had emerged from, which now showed a view of green fields under a bright sun instead of the hallway that should have been there. Through this door is a place where no one rules over anyone else, where your children can grow up free to choose their own paths, where you work because you want to, not because you must. Grixinal's wife, Thyra, stepped forward to look through the impossible doorway. Is this real? It is very real, Colonel Zhang answered. Many of your neighbors from other colonies have already made this choice. Would you like to speak with some of them? Through the quantum communicator, voices of other Zephyrians began speaking. They were colonists who had left Imperial worlds months earlier, and they described their new lives with joy and wonder. They spoke of communities where species from dozens of different worlds lived together in peace. The choice is yours, Colonel Zhang said. You can stay here and continue as Imperial subjects, and we will not bother you again. Or you can step through this door and join us. But you must decide quickly. We cannot keep these doorways open for long. Across the colony, similar conversations were happening in every home, every workplace, every gathering place. Some families chose to stay, and the humans respected their decision completely. But most looked at their children and made a different choice. By dawn, mining colony Zerion 7 was empty except for the few dozen Zephyrians who had chosen to remain. The processing plants were shut down properly. The life support systems were left running and all equipment was undamaged. The colony was simply empty of people. Admiral Kethvar arrived 3 days later with a full investigation team. He walked through the empty streets with growing frustration and confusion. Security cameras showed him everything that had happened, but what he saw made no sense. They just talked to people? He asked his intelligence officer. No weapons, no threats, no force? The recordings are clear, sir. They offered everyone a choice and respected whatever decision was made. Admiral Kethvar studied the footage of Colonel Zhang speaking with colonist families. The human woman was calm, polite, and seemed genuinely concerned about the welfare of the people she was talking to. This is not how enemies behave, he muttered. Enemies take what they want by force. They impose their will through strength. These humans are doing something else entirely. Captain Taejin Park monitored Zephyrian military communications from his stealth ship, hidden in normal space but invisible to Imperial sensors. He listened as Admiral Kethavar reported the latest colony evacuation to Emperor Zethmore. They are not following any recognizable pattern of conquest, my Emperor. The Admiral's frustrated voice came through the communication channel. They take no territory, claim no resources, and seek no strategic advantage. They simply offer people a way to leave. The Emperor's reply was filled with anger. Then why are our outer territories emptying? Why are production quotas failing across 17 sectors? Because, my Emperor, Admiral Kethvar said quietly, Our subjects are choosing to leave us. Dr. Yon Su-han reviewed the latest reports. From the liberation teams, 47 colonies had been evacuated in the past month alone. The pocket dimension that housed Earth and the other free worlds was growing crowded with refugees from imperial rule. "We are running out of space," she reported to the council meeting. "We need to begin establishing new pocket dimensions." President Jin A. Kim nodded from her seat at the head of the council table. "Begin construction of Dimension Echo 8 through Echo 12. We have enough quantum generators to support 5 more reality bubbles." The Liberation Fleet was growing stronger every month as more species joined the humans in their mission. Zephyrians who had tasted freedom became some of the most effective liberation agents, able to speak to their own people in ways that resonated deeply. What had started as humanity's escape from certain destruction had become something much larger, a movement that was teaching the galaxy that imperial rule existed only because people believed they had no other choice. Admiral Kethvar stood alone on the bridge of his flagship, staring out at the stars and wondering how many of the worlds he could see were already empty, their populations living freely in places he could never reach. Lieutenant Dong Wook-shin knew the mission was going badly when the Zephyrian patrol ship surrounded his rescue craft. He had been extracting a family of refugees from the fortress world Zerion Prime when Imperial forces finally managed to anticipate one of their operations. His ship was disabled, and now he sat in a holding cell deep inside Admiral Kethvar's flagship. For 3 weeks, they interrogated him every day. The Zephyrians wanted to know about human technology, their ship designs, their weapon systems, and most importantly, where Earth had gone. Lieutenant Shin said nothing, sitting quietly in his chair while alien officers shouted questions at him in broken human languages. Admiral Kethvar had grown desperate. The liberation operations were accelerating across the Empire. Entire sectors were now empty of population, their industrial facilities shut down, their tax revenues gone. Emperor Zethmor was demanding answers that Kethvar could not provide. "Human," the Admiral said as he entered the interrogation room personally for the first time. "My patience is at an end. Tell me how your people move through space. Tell me where you have taken our subjects. Tell me where your planet has gone." Lieutenant Shin looked up at the towering alien commander. After weeks of silence, he finally spoke. "You are asking the wrong questions." Admiral Kethvar leaned forward. "Then what should I be asking? You keep wanting to know about our weapons, our ships, our technology, but those are not the right questions. The right question is why your own people choose to leave you." The Admiral's mandibles clicked in frustration. "Our subjects leave because you deceive them with false promises." Lieutenant Shin shook his head. "We make no promises except one, that they have a choice." Before Admiral Kethvar could respond, the room filled with soft light. Dr. Yunji Seo appeared as a hologram in the center of the interrogation chamber, her image projected through the quantum communicator hidden in Lieutenant Shin's equipment. "Good evening, Admiral," Dr. Seo said politely. "I thought it was time we had a proper conversation." The Admiral stepped back, his hand moving instinctively toward his weapon. "How are you doing this? Our security system should prevent any outside communication." "Our technology operates outside your understanding of physics," Dr. Seo replied. "But that is not important. What is important is what you still do not understand about us." She gestured, and the walls of the interrogation chamber became transparent. Through them, Admiral Kethvar could see something that made his breathing stop. Earth hung in space before him, blue and beautiful and impossible, but surrounding it were dozens of other worlds, planets he recognized as former Imperial colonies. "We call this Dimension Echo 7, Dr. Seo explained. "One of 12 pocket dimensions we have created. Each one contains worlds that chose freedom over subjugation." Admiral Kethvar stared at the impossible sight. "This cannot be real. Entire planets cannot simply exist outside of normal space." "Not outside," Lieutenant Shin corrected. "Sideways. We built machines that move matter through quantum dimensions. We did not develop better weapons than yours, Admiral. We developed something much more dangerous to your empire. The ability to exist without acknowledging your authority." President Ginny Kim's image joined Dr. Seo's hologram. She looked exactly as she had during that first communication months. Ego, calm and untroubled by the sight of the alien commander. "You see, Admiral," President Kim said, "we spent 40 years preparing for your arrival. But we did not prepare for war. We prepared for exodus. We learned how to take our entire world and step outside of your reality." Admiral Kethavar found his voice. "But your attacks on our ships, your raids on our colonies, rescue operations," Dr. Seo said simply. "We are not conquering your territory, Admiral. We are offering your subjects the knowledge that your rule is optional. Every species we contact learns the same thing, that they can simply walk away." The hologram showed Admiral Kethvar scenes from the liberated worlds. Zephyrians, Altarians, Centaurians, and dozens of other species living together in peaceful communities. Children of different races played together while their parents worked in fields and factories by choice rather than force. "How many?" Admiral Kethvar whispered. 47 million beings have chosen freedom in the past 6 months. President, Kim replied. "They live on 73 worlds across 12 dimensions, and the number grows every day." Admiral Kethvar sank into a chair. The numbers were staggering. The Empire was losing entire populations not through conquest or rebellion, but through simple emigration to places that should not exist. "Your empire is built on the belief that beings must choose between submission and destruction," Dr. Seo continued. "We have proven that there is a third option: departure. We are not revolutionaries, Admiral. We are librarians, and the knowledge we share is this: you do not have to live under anyone's rule if you choose not to." Lieutenant Shin stood up from his chair. "The interrogation is over, Admiral. I am going home now." He walked toward the chamber wall, which opened like a doorway as he approached it. Through the opening, Admiral Kethvar could see a peaceful garden on some distant world. "Wait," the Admiral called out. "How do we stop this? How do we prevent more defections?" Lieutenant Shin paused at the threshold. "You cannot stop people from choosing freedom, Admiral. You can only give them reasons to stay." He stepped through the doorway, which closed behind him, leaving Admiral Kethvar alone with the holograms. "Your empire will survive, Admiral, President," Kim said gently, "but only if it learns to earn loyalty instead of demanding it. The choice, as always, is yours." The holograms faded, leaving Admiral Kethvar alone in the interrogation chamber. Through the transparent walls, he could still see the impossible sight of Earth and its companion worlds existing in their pocket dimension, forever beyond the Empire's reach. For the first time in his military career, Admiral Kethvar understood that he was facing an enemy that could not be defeated, because they refused to fight on his terms. The humans had weaponized the most dangerous idea in the galaxy, that freedom was always an option. The Empire would have to decide whether to adapt or watch as its subjects discovered they could simply walk away. "Retry, Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses,"